So I've got my cuppa.
Always ready.
Great minds. Great
Listen,
minds.
I cannot do without tea, honestly. Oh yeah, no, that was needed.
Great minds. If you guys are listening, it's because me and my beautiful guest here, we're both like we're on Zoom, and then I was like showing her my cup of well, I've got coffee, she's got tea, and yeah, so we're like great minds. But the reason I had my cuppa is because,
Mhm.
and so the voice that you're listening, I think they haven't really heard you speak, but let me introduce you.
Yeah.
So we've got here a very special guest. It's been a long time coming. Like literally, I've messed and it's me. Like I've dropped the ball. I'm sure it's been 2 years in the making. We're like, yeah, can you come on the podcast? And then
Yes.
like, yeah, I just do my own thing. But we've got here a very, very special guest. The type of guest that so this is gonna be a throwback to like the maybe the older generation who remember like the ads in Zim, like one good day. You're too young, Nessa, to even know what I'm
Oh
talking
my
about.
God.
You're too young to even know what I'm talking about. But anyway,
No.
let me be serious. So we've got here a very special guest. We've got a Miss Nessa. Nessa, who is, some of you will remember her from, she's a co-host of Brunch and Bantu Knots podcast. And yes, we're going to ask them like what's going on. We missed them. We missed them on the airwaves. She is a professional, which we'll definitely get into in this episode, and much, much, much more. Nessa, hello.
Hi, Nat.
How are
I'm so
you?
excited. I am good. Oh my gosh, it's been a long time coming. Like you said, 2 years we've been talking about this. And now here we are.
Yes, yes, it's been a long time coming. And then I was saying, because Nessa's coming on, I know like on your podcast, you'd be like, what are you drinking? So I was like, oh, I have to have like my cup of coffee. And well, we'll see how the editing gods treat me. If I can, I may try and steal that, the sound that you guys used to have, like of
Oh
the rocks.
yeah. If I can, I might send it to you because I do have it actually.
Please, 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 please do. But if you're listening to this and the effects are not there, just know that, girl, I'm a geriatric millennial and I tried.
No, you're trying. You're trying. You're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, but how are you?
I'm good. I mean, obviously it's midweek, so it's busy, but I can't complain. I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah,
How are
yeah.
you?
No, I'm good. The weather's horrible though. Yo,
Yeah.
guys.
Today I went out with a colleague. Literally, it is freezing out there. I was
Yeah.
like, I regret actually agreeing to doing this.
It is absolutely freezing, and I'm just like, oh. Did you watch the Grammys by any chance, or like any of the clips or anything?
Oh, girl, no. The only thing that I've seen is Trevor Noah, of course, on Twitter. And then
Yeah.
on TikTok, I've seen Trump's response actually to what Trevor Noah said, and that was it. Because they're on it like quite late, right? And some
Mm,
of us are grandmas. I sleep at 10, so I was like, yeah,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, no, no, no. I've only seen clips as well. Like you said, like I think it comes out like 4 a.m. our time. I've only
Yeah.
seen clips, and I know there's been a big on Twitter the whole like so Tyler won Tyler
Yeah,
this
so
our South
that.
African she won like I think for best African performance I believe and yo the people are not happy.
The people are not happy, but they are never happy with Tyler. Honestly, there's always something.
Yeah, because I also feel like maybe with the Grammys, because the way it's categorized, like it's best African performance, so that just puts
Mm,
everything in,
yeah,
right?
I
So because
agree.
she's I mean she's African, you have to count her. But then people are like, oh, the sound is not really like African. It's because obviously Tyler is kind of really pop, right? She's
She
getting into
is,
that
yeah.
mainstream pop world.
Mm.
But yeah, the our green and white brothers were not happy.
No, and I saw one of them complaining. I was like, well, African, like, sound is so diverse. Why can't
Mm,
she be African? Yes, it's pop, but she is of African origin. So, but I also think there's always something to say when it's someone from Southern Africa.
yeah.
But if it was someone from, where
Yeah.
they wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, and I just think because we're Southern Africa is like the new kids on the block, isn't it?
Mm.
So I I do kind of get it, but I also kind of
Hmm.
get maybe the Grammys are like, listen, we started off with like there was a world category, right? We've now even tried to condense it to like Africa.
We're trying our best here.
To make you guys happy. But I guess it's one of those things. But anyway, before
Mm.
we get into the meat of this conversation, I just quickly wanted to go through some of the comments and yeah, some of the
Okay.
comments that we got from previous episodes. So your season 3 of Chat with Nan. I wanted to first of all, we'll start with the VIPs. Hey, so school bought 5 coffees on 5-year coffees. So listen, school, you are the MVP. So this was off the back of the episode that I did with Amanda. So you guys should check it out. We were talking about vision boarding. We talked about her career in film. But actually, there's going to be another episode where we speak to her in more detail about her career aspect. So School said,
I enjoyed that actually.
oh, did you? Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. So School said, thoroughly enjoyed this episode. You and Amanda are such a pair. Hope she joins you again soon. Very well done, Mankazana. Thank you. I said this to Amanda. I was like, clearly, I definitely owe you a coffee. I was like, next time I owe you a coffee. But School, thank you so much. You guys, you don't know what it means. Like, I know less like you know, like, even when people like comment or anything like on your content, you'll be like, oh, you
It
actually
means
listened.
so much. But also you're doing an incredible job because I have also listened to the recent episode and I really enjoyed that as
Oh
well. So
yes, the one
yeah.
with Judith. And then yes, so the most recent episode I did it with my friend Judith, which funnily enough, that is okay, similar to what we've done. Like we had a whole plan of what we're going to talk about. We sat down and then Judith was like, you're still talking to me. I was like, wait, what? I was like, so then like it just went down such a
Mm.
natural path where we're just having a real conversation about, being in our, I was about to say in our 30s, but some of us. Well,
It
Judith is
was your birthday recently, wasn't it, as well?
yeah, Judith is still in her 30s anyway. So we're having a real conversation just about your like friendships and navigating friendships. And I kind of think there's a theme around it. Like I see so many people talking about
Mm.
it, especially for women, unfortunately. Like as
Yeah,
we get older, the demands of life just make it so hard to maintain friendships, which is
yeah.
such a shame. So I hope Nessa, you guys, the young ones, you guys are listening and you're learning like how to like future proof like your relationships because it is a thing.
Do you know what I think is so important? Because I never used to get it when people say,
Mm,
especially when women go on to have children and then they lose those friendships. But it has happened to a few of my friends that have had children, but it's not because of anything malicious. It's just life and you're at different stages. But I do agree, we need to make more of an effort to maintain those friendships. So they are
mm.
quite, and it's what you need as well outside of being a parent or, when you're thriving in your career and so on.
Yeah, exactly. So on the YouTube Buki, who goes by Potiner. Now people have very interesting names on their YouTube handles. She said, "Great episode, ladies. Loved how vulnerable you were with each other. It was refreshing." And then Ashley, at Ashley 438, says, "Such a good episode. Loved the discussion around motherhood." And then Danai, the tutor, said the tension between career and family commitment is so real, and I wholeheartedly agree that we can't have it all at the same time. We have to manage our own and others' expectations. So, yes, I just wanted to give you guys a shout out. And then some people commented on Instagram as well. So thank you guys. Please keep commenting because it shows me that you enjoy the content, and obviously how you can buy me a coffee if you'd like. And okay, so like I said, this has been 2 years in the making. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So, um,
Mm.
Nessa is a social worker. I know we can say that, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that's a profession that's very close to my heart because my mother used to be a social worker, right? So I always feel like a kind of affinity to like social workers. And I guess the older that I've got, right, I kind of have a better understanding of the role that social services and all these kind of careers, um the role that they play in society, right? And I was really keen on having a discussion with Nessa about her work I mean, she'll tell us she's not just a social worker. She is, like she's a coach. She's all sorts, right? But I really wanted to just have a conversation. And you guys know that I'm really interested in sort of like I guess talking about things, but coloring it with, a lot of our experiences, perhaps as immigrants or as children of immigrants or as people that are raising second, third generation, and just really, really, really understanding, the role that that plays. But I guess maybe just kind of start off with really, really interested in yeah, just your journey into social work, like why did you like how did that come about? What was the interest and what led you down this path?
Yeah. Do you know what? I always say to people, I didn't know that I was going to be a social worker, but I always knew whatever job I will do will include like supporting people in the community. I'm more so like young people. I've always been passionate about that because I think when I was 17, I'm maybe a bit younger actually. Before I even went to uni, I used to volunteer like with youth offenders, and I really enjoyed that. And then I went to uni, did my first degree, which was in sociology and criminology. At the same time, I was volunteering with a women's refuge, and I really enjoyed that because you're literally changing someone's life from when they have nowhere else to go but to seek support. So I really enjoyed that. At the same time, I was also volunteering with citizen advice as well, where people will drop in asking for all kinds of advice, and then you will signpost them in the right direction. So after my degree, I was like, okay, I think I'm just going to, become a social worker. But what I didn't know at the time was that I would become, a children's social worker because there is so many fields that you can go into because you can work with adults. But I'm really passionate about safeguarding, but also working with children, young people, and their parents, or in wider families. So that's how I've become a social worker. Almost 9 years, guys.
Wow, almost 9 years.
It will be 9 years in August this year.
Oh my goodness. So in terms of so you talked about, the work that you did with young people, working with youth offenders. I mean, at the time, did you kind of think, oh, social work is what I want to do? Because, you may have gone down the kind of youth worker route.
You know what? I didn't know, but when I finished my undergrad, I thought if I want to work with young people, youth offenders, but also I'm passionate about like social justice. I thought social work is the one kind of like aspect that brings it all together because you're supporting young people that may be involved in youth offending, but also there's like poor mental health, there's the domestic abuse aspect of it. And I just thought, okay, I think I can do this. But of course, then it led me to obviously working in safeguarding. And ever since then, I've never changed. I've always stuck to safeguarding, which most people along the way, they tend to change. And apparently, the lifetime span of a frontline social worker is like 5 years. So yeah, we're going, you know.
Yeah, that's why when you say 9 years, I was like, oh my goodness. So what does your sort of typical day look like? I know that one day isn't, any day isn't sort of the same, but just if someone was like interested, like, well, what do you actually do like on a kind of regular typical day?
So I'm currently on a long-term team because there's so many aspects and different I want to say departments within social work. So you have what they would call MASH, which is like the first response where someone makes a call or a school refers a child because they have worries. I am on the team where our frontline our front door social workers have made an assessment. They think this family or this child or young person could do with, extra support. So we work on a long-term basis. It can be up to 6 months, up to even a year. What day in, day out looks like, that can be quite tricky because you can go from having literally a meeting with multi-agency professionals. You're literally deciding on what to do immediately to safeguard that family or that child. But then at the same time, you could be working from home where you're typing a report for court, minutes from the last meeting that you've done. You can be going to a school to do some direct work with a young person or, a child. I keep saying a child, but because they're younger children is what I mean. And or at times you're in court as well. And if you're in a position like myself, sometimes you're out, supporting your colleagues, sometimes who are newly qualified or where maybe there are some difficulties and just they need someone just to kind of for that support or to observe. That's what I would kind of like describe it as. So no day is the same.
Yeah, no, that sounds busy and going to court and that sounds quite possibly intimidating a little bit. I mean, I mean, obviously now you've done it for years, but when you started, how was it like interacting with all these different services and maybe having to go in front of, you know, is it a judge? I don't know how it works in this country. Is that a
Yeah.
magistrate or a judge?
So it depends on the level. So sometimes when you have private proceedings, which often occur when parents have separated and they don't agree on where the child should live or who the child should live with mainly. So that's like private proceedings, and that is most often before the magistrate's court. Then you have care proceedings that the local authority would issue if they feel actually we are so concerned about this, this young person or child, we need to share parental responsibility, and that often goes before a higher circuit judge.
Okay. So what I guess I'm interested in understanding what triggers like social services intervention, right?
Mm.
If someone is listening and they're thinking, "Oh my God, I never want to interact with social services," or like, like I guess what are the sort of things that trigger like social services? Yeah.
I mean, there's a number of things. It's not
Mm,
just one, but the most that we come across around like domestic abuse, where
mm,
maybe a neighbor has called the police because they can overhear an argument or someone's being violent, but also often, a child going to school, maybe there are signs of neglect, and the school will make that referral. Then, would make contact with the family to
mm.
say, we've received this referral, we're coming out to visit and to go over the concerns. And at times, you have parents that unfortunately they're struggling with substances or alcohol. And at times as well, it's around like mental health, where
Mm,
that is impacting on the care of the child. But also at times, there are families that struggle because their children have additional learning needs and they
yeah.
need that further support.
Mm,
So
okay.
yeah, a wide range of things, really, I would say.
Yeah, so I guess no one kind of referral is the same, right?
Yeah,
But I'm kind of trying to think of like the journey, and especially I guess kind of trying to differentiate between not maybe that's not the wrong way to kind of look at it. But I think because people, when they think of social services, right, they think of, oh my God, someone is coming to like judge my parenting and
yeah,
to like put these rules in place, or, at the extreme, like to take my child away. Um, and I guess it's kind of understanding that journey and understanding that sometimes
mm,
it's temporary, and like to the point that you made, that some people just genuinely need the help, right? Maybe if you've
yeah,
got like additional like needs that need to be catered for, like that's the role of like social services.
yeah. Yeah, I think most people tend to think, the minute
Mm,
that you say you're a social worker to someone,
yeah.
they think, oh, you take children away. But actually, it's much more than just that. Because, first of all, if, as an example, let's say the police went out to a family and the home conditions were concerned, they found them to be unlivable. The police have the power to take those children and put them with maybe a family member, just, on an interim basis until the home is more livable and those home
Mm,
conditions obviously are kind of stable and safer for children. So going back to what you were saying, when we go out, obviously, but part of our involvement is around assessing your parenting capacity. But for example, if someone's struggling with mental health, we have to assess, how does that impact the care of the children, and where are the strengths and where are the areas of development? How can we support you, to make sure that the children remain at home? The first thing that is most important is to kind of get them to understand we want your children to remain home. The answer is not to remove them. But if it's so unsafe, then we look at family members. So we'll be asking you, who are your friends, family members, grandparents, aunts and uncles. And of course, there are times where, we have done everything. And what I mean by that is we've done the parenting support. We've given you a family support worker. We've got you a recovery practitioner around drugs and alcohol. We've got a mental health practitioner supporting you. We've got someone supporting you around domestic abuse. And those things do not change over a long-term period. And actually, the impact on the children is causing them what we would call significant harm. That's when then things may escalate, where we now need to consider long-term options for these children, and that could be just, family members, like I was saying, aunts and uncles, grandparents. And at times, if we cannot identify anyone whatsoever, or if everyone that has put themselves forward or that we've identified is maybe does pose a risk to children, which sometimes people don't often agree with, then we may then have to look at into, foster care.
mm. And I guess I can only imagine like how contentious like some of these like engagements can be, right?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, is it as contentious as because I can imagine that, you may feel when you go into the community, do you feel
Mm.
like you are received well, or is there a bit of like, you know,
I
apprehension?
mean, it's always difficult because I can understand if
Mm,
if I had children and someone was to knock on my door and they're saying I'm concerned, I have these worries. Of course, you're gonna get your back up, you're gonna become defensive. So often, you do get kind of like that backlash at times.
mm,
But then there are times where parents, you can understand why you're there to support them and why they need the support. But I think that's a journey that you have to go through, which, every family and sometimes young people as well, because especially when they're teenagers, if they've had like repeated involvement, they may not have that trust because
mm.
from based on their own experiences previously. So it just depends. But I will say sometimes, you do have parents that can be quite defensive, and that means kind of like lashing out at you or trying to I wouldn't say attack, but
Mm.
I guess it's their own defense mechanism. When I was newly qualified, you don't even have children. What do you know about parenting? That kind of thing. And it's like, well, whether I have children or not, I'm here in a professional capacity to support you and just go through this journey with you. So it depends on the family. But I would say often we do see, parents expressing that, they feel disappointed, they've not been supported previously, they've been let down, and now they're at a crisis point, I would say. Yeah. Hold on.
So I'm just thinking about our communities, right? Thinking
Mm,
about immigrants, really, right? Because I can only imagine that there's an additional possible stuff like being lost in translation, right?
yeah.
Culture clashes, you know, and I mean, for example, I know when I came to this country, one of the things was like, you can't leave children on their own, right? Especially
Yeah.
maybe it's like a 13, 14-year old, right? Was like, oh my God, you can't leave children on their own because you're dealing with parents who are working all the hours God gives, right? And
Mm,
some of the older children are being left with younger children, which I guess sometimes happens, say, back home. But
yeah.
obviously, back home, there's actually there's grandmothers, there's like, like the helpers.
Neighbors.
Exactly.
Mm,
So, like a child is not completely alone, or things like, how they punish, punishment, right? Because some people
mm,
still use the belts, like,
yeah. Yeah.
physical. So, yeah, I'm just interested I guess maybe like just the basics, right? For some people who may
Mm,
be listening, would see like what is I guess some of these basic things, like I said, you can't leave a child,
yeah.
you know, if that happens, what could potentially be the outcome if that is found out? The whole sort of like physical, um,
Mm.
it's physical abuse, really, right? To a
Physical
child, like,
chastisement. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I guess what are some of the things that maybe you've come across that
Mm,
you maybe you have an appreciation that, okay, culturally this is a toxic thing, it's done, but people just don't have an understanding that
mm.
this I guess environment culture doesn't permit this thing.
I mean, I think I would definitely say physical chastisement is definitely one of the things that a lot of parents that I've come across anyway, they don't understand because for them, when they were growing up, their parents used to hit them as a form of discipline. Then there's me, Nessa, coming in saying, actually, you cannot do that. And I think sometimes, obviously, with being of an African background, parents almost kind of think I will understand. And I'm like, well, no. And I think again, it's looking at someone's understanding because often if you're gonna use a belt, you're picking up things, hitting your child, or any weapon that you're using, that is not appropriate. And I think most often they don't understand that it's the impact on the child, not only just the hitting, but the emotional impact, the physical impact. And that's where I think there's a struggle when as professionals we're not going in and we're saying try these strategies and sometimes they may see things like okay how about having a chat with your child sit down spend more time quality time they may see that as a westernized way of like raising children but actually it does have its benefits when a child is not scared of the parent but there's that kind of like mutual respect as well and there's consistent boundaries. Because also as a child, if you're growing up in an environment where you do something, your dad's hitting you, you're going to be scared to even like then report any worries that you may have because you're trying to appease them at all times. So that is definitely one thing
Mm,
I've come across a lot, in my previous jobs that I've had. But also I think some of to things is, I guess it's just parents not under the lack of supervision of children. So if you think about in this country, a lot of children are on their phones. Yes, you might leave them with an older sibling who's 13, but how old is the younger sibling? If you're living maybe, a 10-month old, I would say a baby at that point, does that 13-year-old have the capacity to actually know what to do and to supervise their sibling? They may not. And actually, they may not even be conscious that this is a risk at home, if they walk and touch something and it falls, things like that, basically. But I
Mm,
think parents underestimate that. But I also think from our context, there's always people around, either a grandma or an aunt. Like you said, you've got a maid, you've got neighbors as well. Whereas actually, we live in a very individualized like society. Your neighbors don't even know your name.
yeah, yeah. No,
Mm,
that's interesting. I think one of the things I was reflecting on was I remember my mom used to say this, that this society is child-centered, is child-focused, right?
mm,
When she was talking about just the differences with Zim, for example. And I
mm,
was thinking about this. Like, there's one thing that I used to notice, like when I first came, whether on the trains or tube or whatever, right? Where, um, I mean, especially like for me living in London, like the social
yeah,
contact is absolutely gone. So people are no longer as courteous as they used to be. But
yeah,
like how maybe like you'd see a pregnant woman and then offer them the seat. I
mm,
used to notice that sometimes, like with kids, right? Like people would offer kids a seat, right? And it
mm,
always struck me because I used to think back home, it'll be like, you get out, let
yeah,
an older
get out.
person sit, right? So
Yeah,
I probably used to really have that mentality, like, why are you offering like a
yeah,
6-year-old, 7-year-old, right? And then as time has gone on, right, I'm kind of realizing that actually, oh, let the poor boy sit
yeah,
down,
right.
that, and
No,
I think
that's
that's just one thing that was just like, oh, okay, I get what
yeah,
what we mean when okay, this society is child focused, child centered, whereas back home, and I'm sure like home has changed now as well,
mm,
due to
yeah.
these different influences from people maybe having traveled and just the natural evolution of things. But I just remember that like back home, it was just like, nah.
Do you know one thing that I've realized as well, when we're talking about being child focused, and a lot of people that came here maybe when they were older probably have the same story. You thought you were coming to England on holiday, and 20 years later, you're still here. Because parents don't explain it to you. So when I came here, I thought I'm going to go home and live with my grandparents. And then what? 18 years, 20 years later, I'm still here. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. And it's like even the thing of like, as a child, you don't ask why. But what you would find in the society, people explain things to children. And I always say to my mom, maybe if you guys had explained to me that I'm moving here, I would have understood a bit more with my own, 10-year-old Nessa at the time, because everything was confusing. I'm like, one minute I'm like living with my grandparents, the next thing I'm here. Hi guys, how? Like, what's going on? You're going to a different school, your friends. But those things are important for a child's understanding. And I think that's where maybe we still need to continue to improve in terms of parenting children, just to explain things to how does that child actually feel? How do they feel about this decision that they've made as parents? Yeah,
No,
I definitely, yeah.
I completely agree with you. And funny enough, you just reminded me that there's an episode that you guys did where Ruby was talking about I think she was referencing, I think it's called the Layover podcast, where someone had a similar story that she when she was 10, like she went to America and then apparently they were supposed to like stop over in London like for a holiday. And then they're still there. But you know what? But those things are real, right? Because I'll go on a little tangent, right?
Mm,
But if you think about it, like Western Union babies, like what I used to
yeah.
call people like who are left home, um,
Mm,
and then the interaction is like the parents are just sending money, and
mm,
I I think there's something about and then the example like your situation of like coming and not really understanding okay what's going on because I don't know I feel like I think the more I've been here and the more I sort of see the things that people put in place to really
mm,
invest in the confidence that their children have, right? So
mm,
even the little things like the extracurricular activities and the environments that they expose their children to, I look at that and
mm,
I'm like, oh, we are playing a totally different game here because
mm,
these are these children who are going to lead us, right? Who just have
mm.
that innate confidence. Obviously, we can't be too harsh on ourselves because the reality
Yeah.
is, we've been dealt really difficult. I mean, leaving your homeland to go somewhere already means that you're
Yeah.
really being pushed, right? But I'm like,
Mm,
oh, people don't understand just how much that impacts the confidence of the
mm,
individual, right? Whether it's like your parents just not being there and you being whether it's in Zim or wherever, and your parent is in the UK, or you being or you coming to a different environment, leaving all your friends. When you're 10, like that's your whole life. Like those are your
oh, like
yeah, you
it's
know,
a lot, isn't it? And it's a life-changing experience because you come here,
mm,
the cultural shock, first of
yeah,
all. You've gone from living in an environment where everyone looks like you speak the same language and all
yeah,
of this, and you've got that routine, you're going to school with your friends, you're playing, and then you
yeah,
come here and it's not the same.
mm,
It's so challenging, and I think, for a child especially, because there's certain things that as a child you're not able to communicate, if you
mm,
know what I mean, because it's just the cultural shock, but
yeah,
also it's a massive loss as well. But
mm,
I guess for parents, I also think how difficult it is, like when I read your article that you did in
mm,
terms of like raising children with the Union babies, and parents also kind of being conflicted when they're trying to parent a child, over the phone pretty much or sending money. And it's not the same. And I think, in my view, I don't think that relationship between a parent and a child can ever be what is naturally meant to be
mm,
because there's a gap, isn't it?
yeah,
If your primary attachments are maybe your grandparents or your aunts, and then now you have to adjust to living with your parent and
yep.
they may have a different parenting style as well. So what does that mean for the child, going through all of that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like
Yeah.
I think it reminds me of there was a young man, a boy really,
Mm,
who was a victim of bullying. It was on social media like a few years ago, but he was from Zim. Like I could hear the accent, where literally like
mm.
the boys were just I don't know whether they spent on his shoe. I don't know if you remember
Oh
that. It was
yeah,
yeah,
I saw
and he
that.
was from Zim. Like he had literally come, and you could just tell. Like, I could see that like how like our temperament is always kind of,
Mm,
quite, just calm and everything. And they were
yeah.
really like bullying him and
Mm,
I believe he had obviously because there's a crop of people that came post COVID, right, to work
mm,
in healthcare and social care. And those people, brought their kids when they were able to. Obviously, they've now changed
mm,
things, right? And I was looking at that and I was thinking, oh my goodness, what a shame, right? Because,
mm.
obviously in that situation, I'm also thinking that the parents probably don't even know like the system, right? Like they don't know
Yeah.
how best they can support their child when that happens to their child in a foreign land. But yeah, so I guess maybe linking it back to what we're talking about,
Mm.
like, are there situations where like people like self-refer and saying, we need support?
Definitely. There are times where I think most often those parents that self-refer, they've maybe had previous involvement and actually they know they felt supported and they may be trying independently to keep going, but they recognize that actually, you know what, I can't, I need extra support here. But I would say we see that more often with parents that have children with additional learning needs, whether it's ADHD or if they're on the spectrum in terms of being autistic, or really at times where the child has quite significant needs. They know, we can call children's social care for support. Or sometimes, someone from school might just say, look, let's talk to them. We'll be with you. If they have that relationship with at least one professional, whether it's a health visitor or it's someone within the school, I think parents feel more confident to kind of to seek that support, really.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, no, that's interesting. And so at the top you're talking about I guess when you talk about your day and you mentioned
Mm,
that sometimes you may need to go to court. It kind of reminded me of a TikTok that I saw
mm,
some months ago actually, where someone was saying that they were speaking to a barrister, right?
mm,
And also I think a judge or whatever. But I believe this individual is a social worker, and he was saying
mm,
that the those professionals were saying that they, I guess, really enjoy when they work with social workers who are
mm.
Zimbabwean or Zimbabwean born, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the person was then sort of asking on TikTok, like, oh, well, why do you guys think that is? Because they were saying that they kind of find that a lot of social workers, like from Zim, or even if maybe they were born here, but their parents are from Zim, that
Mm,
they're more likely to exhaust all options to keep the child within the family unit, in comparison to like other colleagues, right? And I'm sure it's beyond
mm.
Zim, right? It's probably like, obviously Zim
Yeah.
is were over represented, right? I guess in terms of like Southern
Yeah.
Africans. But yeah, because in the comments, and the first thing that I thought of was like, it's because of like Ubuntu, right?
Mm,
Because it's innately sort of like drilled into us. And also, if you then think about it, we actually like do a lot of like informal adoption, fostering. Like everyone has a cousin who, their parents were paying school fees for. Like every family, there's no family where it was just like the parents just looked after these kids.
just a child. Yeah, no. I mean, I always say this to my friends. I'm an only child, obviously, to my mom.
Yeah,
And, people have this thing, oh, only child, you're spoiled and everything. And I'm like, actually, guys, you don't understand. My mom was not only paying school fees for me, it was
yeah,
like, three or four of my other cousins, and were of a similar age. So you're never just the only child. But
yeah.
yeah, in terms of that, like what he was saying, I did watch that TikTok. I feel like I don't know if it's just me as a person, but I would always exhaust every like option
Mm,
possible. If it means I have to get hold of that aunt and see
yeah,
if, this child they could be assessed to
yeah,
care for this child, I would. If they live in Scotland, listen, we would make our way to Scotland if we have to.
yeah,
Just because that child remains within the family, because also that means they can maintain links with like, their, parents as well. So that's really important.
yeah.
And I think on the flip side, it has taken me a really long time, I would say, to come to terms with, when grandparents say, actually, no, we don't want to look after them. Or when an auntie say, as an example, let's say the
Yeah,
plan for this, child is adoption because there is no other option, and they say we can't do it. I find
yeah,
that so difficult because I'm like, if I could, like, even now, take on, any younger cousins, I absolutely would. Within a heartbeat, I wouldn't even like think about it.
yeah.
And that's because of how we're raised in terms of you look after one another and you're not just an individual, you are who you are because of others within your family. So I think there is an element of truth to it, but I also think it can be quite difficult, even when you're trying to exhaust all options.
Mm,
Which, personally then is just emotionally you struggle with that when, family members make decisions that they make for their own,
yeah.
uh, yeah,
Yeah, and I guess, different cultures, right? They'll be like,
yeah.
why are you asking me? Like, I'm just the parents' cousins, whereas in our culture, it'll be like, you know, you are the
Like,
parent.
yeah. I mean, sometimes when, if as an example, when grandparents don't want to look after this, our grandkids, we just want to be grandparents. I really find that difficult because what do you mean? Like your
Yeah.
child needs the help, and the help that you can give is looking after, your grandchild. And
Yeah.
yeah, it is hard for me to understand because also you would think at least this child is within the family. They're not going to a stranger. And
Mm.
of course, I give all my respect to like foster carers who have all the training and expertise. But you always think, but you've got a grandma who's very much capable, but they say no, or an aunt and they say no, and you think, oh my gosh, how?
Yeah, yeah. No, it's so interesting because there's this show on, I'm forgetting the name, but
Mm.
they they always I'm forgetting the name. I think it's on BBC or something. But they try and help people find like their best parents, right?
Oh yeah, I know.
Um
Yeah.
I always watch it just because I've always, should I say, I don't know. Okay, I
Yeah.
if I had the resources, I would
Hmm.
really love to adopt. Like if I
Yeah.
had the resources and I were able to, I'd really love to adopt just because I feel like I've kind of like unintentionally studied this thing, right?
Hmm.
Um and it's so interesting to me, and I'm always so clear that if I were to adopt a child,
Mm.
I, obviously I think these days they no longer do closed adoptions, right? Where the child
Yeah.
doesn't know, because I wouldn't want that. I want you to know, like, who your biological, because the
Yeah.
truth is, people look for their biological family,
Yeah.
right? They just want to know, like, they just want to have a sense of, where I'm from and whatever. So I remember, like, my mom used to always say, like, it's so important when you're writing the notes, right? The small, like the
Mm.
littlest of details, right, will actually help someone. So if someone reads their file and they're like, this is but they were left with this warm blanket and gloves on and whatever. Like, it
Yeah.
actually means something to that person to be like,
Yeah.
oh, my mom or whoever really thought of me. Like, so I should always say it's so important to like write even the smallest of details that people, and I always see it in that show
Mm.
where
Yeah.
maybe people, unfortunately, maybe the birth parent has passed on, but then they
Yeah.
meet their other sibling, and then the sibling is like, no, mom always kept this box with
Yeah, of
stuff
course.
in, and then
Yeah.
they're just like, oh my God, that's my little pen. So I always think, I'm always so kind of fascinated with
Mm.
that world, and yeah.
And I think it's so important as well because that file, so, on the system, when that child does request it when they're an adult, that
Mm,
is the only thing they may have.
yeah,
Just to see if, there's a cousin out there or even sometimes a friend they used to play with, next door. It means so much. And that's why for me, like I'm a big advocate. I will write as much as I can so that
yeah,
the child, so they read it, they have the context, what was happening at that time, why certain decisions were made when they were made. It is
yeah,
so, so crucial because these are people's lives, and actually that could be key, later on in life.
yeah.
So yeah, no.
Yeah, no, no, no. That's so interesting. But I guess going back to that point about like
Mm.
Zoom social workers, obviously we're not just putting ourselves on the back. But I mean,
Well,
do you agree with that? That generally, I guess maybe I feel like maybe it's kind of like our temperament and
mm,
just who we are as a people. I feel like this profession is suited for most of us. Well, I say us,
I
I'm
think
not even a social worker, but yeah.
you too now, you know. No, I think it's so true because I obviously I've worked in different local
Mm,
authorities and I've worked with social workers from different backgrounds, but I
yeah,
do think like when it comes to like African and Asian, everyone is always kind of looking within the family. No, who is this? Who's that? Trying really to maintain that
yeah,
child within the family. I mean, at times obviously there is no other option, but
yeah.
there are times where I'm like, okay, is there anyone in Pakistan that we can speak to?
Mm,
Just because you're trying so much, because also that child's identity is really important.
yeah,
And I think for me, I would feel like I've not done a good job if I've not exhausted all options and it ends up that this child is in long-term foster care
yeah.
or is, adoption when it's a baby, especially. I think it's so, so important. And even just trying to gather everyone to
Mm,
make sure they support, and the mom or the dad if they're having difficulties, which most often is called a family group conference or a family
okay.
network meeting, just
Yeah.
to try and and that's why I was saying for me, I can find it quite difficult emotionally when a family says, no, we don't want to know, we've done all of this before, we're not doing it. I find that really hard.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so important. And I think with how we've been brought up, like there's no such thing as an extended family member. So
Hmm.
when people say, as an example, when I refer to my grandmother here,
Yeah.
what I mean is I mean my grandmother's sister. So
Yeah.
people, oh, you're so extended family. I'm like, well, no, they're still my grandma.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no, yeah, or if I've got a cousin of my grandma's brother's children,
Mm,
as an example, and their children. Oh, extended family. No, everyone is just family. There's no
yeah.
extended this, extended that.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I love that so much because I think it is important. And I think before this episode we had spoken about there was this case where um I think his name you said his name is Nana. He was
Social,
on
yeah.
TikTok, the social worker on TikTok who talks about how he was dealing with the case, which involved a young boy who is of Ghanaian heritage. So the mom and the grandma were Ghanaian, and the grandmother wanted to send the boy back, right, to
Mhm.
Ghana, like for boarding school, because she felt like that would be the best intervention for him. And it was all happening around the same time where there was that high court the thing where the parents sent the boy to Ghana and he was uh suing them or whatever he was challenging.
It took them to high court,
Yeah.
the young person.
But for those who don't know, like there's a young person like the parents sent the boy back to Ghana. But unfortunately they kind of did what we spoke about, which is they said we're
Mm.
going on holiday. And then when he got there, they're like, yeah, here's your school.
The
Here's,
gift.
like, yeah, like this is you. And he
But
obviously was not happy.
But in that scenario, I fully understand and I fully
Mm,
back the parents' decision because I think the context around that was that this young person was getting involved or at risk of being involved with the local gangs. So,
yeah.
being exploited criminally and all that. And sometimes for young people, because they're vulnerable, they
Hmm.
often don't see those risks that, parents and professionals may see. So
Yeah.
to them, saying, I'm gonna leave you in a boarding school in Ghana or with your aunt in Ghana, you're
Yeah.
taking away everything that, of course, they know, but other things that they find exciting. So if
Yeah.
they're being exploited, you're thinking, they might give them a bit of money here and there, or if they are now experimenting with things like cannabis, then
Hmm.
they're gonna lose access to all of that. So I can understand why the parent was like, nah, we're gonna take you back home, but we're not gonna tell you that we're taking you back home. Yeah.
I know, and all I know is that when the decision, I think the judge was like, yeah, we support the parents,
Mm.
decision. Like this is the like all on my FYP on TikTok, it was all the aunties and uncles. Oh, look at this! This is wonderful.
I saw the comments. I was like, oh my days. And you know what? They did the best thing that they can. And I think
Mm,
going back to what Nana was saying is sometimes being a social worker of, of an African background, and if it's specific to that country, then you can kind of explain things in more detail to other professionals if you've
yeah,
got those links to say, oh, actually, guys, maybe let's think about it from this lens. That's
yeah.
quite, I think that's key.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So in that case, he backed this is a separate case, but because
Mm,
he was in the room, he was able to sort of say, yeah, actually, I know where they're talking about, and I think that would be good. Whereas most likely if he hadn't been there, um naturally everyone would have been nervous about signing off for a child to go overseas, right?
mm.
So I think it kind of shows that representation and why it's important to have people like you, working in the front lines and working in social services. So yeah.
No, no, definitely. And I think sometimes it's even just, I think when we spoke on the phone, I
Mm,
made a reference to a previous experience that I had where everyone thought there was neglect ongoing for this child
mm,
because of their hair. And actually I realized that actually this mom had come from um a predominantly like black area to where mainly they can't even get like products for black hair or afro hair, I could say. And it was not a case of like neglect, just that the mom had no access to those products. But you can then see how at times, if the parent already is feeling quite anxious and maybe a bit defensive, they may not even kind of say, I'm struggling to get this. But if it's me, because I do my own hair, I would say, have you got the right, comb for your child's hair? Have you got
mm.
the right product? And that issue can be resolved, with no kind of big consequences, I should say, from, our side of things.
Yeah, yeah, because it's so interesting. Like when you start doing these different activities, they'll be like, "Oh, the hair needs to be, like in a ponytail, like whatever."
Mm.
And you're thinking, my child can't, like, I
There's no
can't do that.
ponytail here, hon.
All we can do is
Yeah.
button-ons.
Like literally, right? That's it. That's all we're doing. And it's
Yeah.
that understanding and that
Mm.
cultural awareness that's really important in practice. And I mean, I'm an advocate for saying everyone should be culturally aware. And if you're not, at least
Yeah.
learn. But
Yeah.
also, I think the most important thing is asking parents, what does this mean for you? What
Yeah.
does that look like?
Yeah.
Yeah, have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So if there's someone who's listening and they're thinking, oh, I might be interested in, doing social work,
Mm,
or I guess, yeah, three things. I might be interested in doing social work, or I might be interested in helping the young people in my life to kind of think about that as a career. I guess question is like how? Like how can someone go about that? And then I guess another question is just in terms of like when should people maybe think about, like approaching social services if there's a need.
yeah,
And sorry. We
yeah,
didn't talk about the
yeah.
undocumented aspect. I wanted to do that before we close.
Yeah, no, of course. Um, I think there's so many avenues of getting into social work. One thing I will say is if your child they have, British status, one thing that they can do is I'm going through the route of going to uni. Actually, I may be wrong. Sorry now. Anyway, what I was saying is I think there's many routes of getting into social work. Of course, the most common one is going to uni and doing a social work degree, which you can do for 3 years. Like any normal degree, you'd have two placements and then that's done. But if, let's say, that child has another degree as an example, the route of getting into that is doing a master's. Or sometimes you can go through the vocational side of things. So that's going through the frontline program. So you're working but still learning, and at the end of that program, you will then have a degree in social work. So that's one way. But of course, I think if they want to if they're not sure, if maybe they're just finishing off like their GCSEs, they could study things like sociology, psychology, health and social care, just to to open up their interest on that side of things, or criminology as well, which is what I did when I was in college. And there's also maybe going through in college, I think no, it's not college, foundational courses as well that you can look into that could then lead to, becoming a social worker. I do know that now most councils, what they do have is an apprenticeship as well. So if you're working for a local authority and you could look if, you could be eligible to go through the apprenticeship of social work. And I think the benefit of that is you're actually in the office with social workers. You may not have cases in your name. So by cases, I mean, families. You're not case holding, but you're working with alongside experienced social workers. And I think that gives you a real kind of like taste of what social work is like on the ground. So I think at times, when you go to uni and all of this, then bang, you're into practice, you're in your first year. It is so different, than just
Yeah.
studying, I would say. So there
Yeah.
are, other ways of getting into social work, if that answers your question.
Yes, it does.
Um, yeah. And then I think you were asking as well in terms of some of the, some of the ways that people can seek support, I guess. I think there's so many things. For instance, if you're struggling to understand your child's behaviors, you're thinking, but there's something just not kind of like sitting right. They're struggling with X, Y, Z. I mean, one example that I always think of, in relation to back home, you know, you have a child like repeating grade five 3 times, you know, and you're still sending them to the same school, same method. Clearly, there's something that's not working. Is there an underlying need? Because sometimes as well, when children do have additional needs, and I think the cultural context is really important, there's an element of masking. So that can at times be missed within school. So that can be missed in terms of having that assessment at the right time. So if you are thinking as a parent, there's some challenges here, but I think I need support. I don't know what to do anymore. Please do ask. I would say schools, most importantly, they will always try and support you and pinpoint you to the right services. But also, I think most times, for women, in particular, around domestic abuse, it doesn't have to be like physical. But, you can give them a ring and say, this is what's going on. They will also like support you and your children so that you're safe. Um, I would say as well around mental health, I think sometimes people don't want to say when they're struggling mentally. And I think that's really important just for yourself. So maybe going through the channel of like mental health, services, but also they can, maybe signpost you to children's social care because it does not mean that your child's going to be removed from your care. It can mean actually, can we explore your support network? Do you have a friend that can come and support you around maybe having them, you know, one night over the weekend to give you that respite so that actually you can get back on your feet? Um, I would, that's what I would say. And I think another thing is often a lot of, immigrant parents, they assume if they've got insecure citizenship, so they don't have status, they can't ask for support. But no, you can still get the same support because we are not immigration. We're not here to then, be calling the Home Office and like they don't have status. What we care about is the care of the children and ensuring their safety. And that means supporting you as a parent.
Thank you. That's really important. Thank you for that. Because I can imagine that a lot of people think of these things, right? And think, oh my God, because I think there's always this thing of you don't want to trigger the system, right? Because we always think
Mm,
like, the everyone talks to each other,
yeah,
So I think that's really important because when we were chatting, I was like, oh no, I didn't even know that that's a thing.
yeah,
But no, but thank you so much. Thank you. There's so much that we could go down, like, yeah, because I don't know, for some reason, I've just been seeing a lot of these stories, especially like people back home
mm,
where maybe children have been taken and it's always to do maybe with kind of like a misunderstanding of the system or
yeah,
just not engaging. Because I think when you don't engage as well,
mm,
people make assumptions and they
yeah,
don't know. So I think it's important that, you know, there's someone who is culturally representative of us, right? Who can speak to us about,
yeah.
the work that you do.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. And I also think I've been seeing a lot of like misconceptions of
Mm,
how the system works, in terms of children's social care. A lot of people were posting things like, oh, I have a friend and their children were just removed just like that. It does not work in that way whatsoever.
yeah.
And really, I think parents need to have the confidence to say, I am struggling. And there is no shame in saying, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
The support will be there for you.
Mm,
Um, and again, in terms of, I would say as well is they think, what are people going to say? Oh, you've got a social worker. But the bottom line is we're here for, your welfare and your children's
mm,
welfare. That is what we care about. And if there's anything that we can do to reduce those difficulties, we will. It doesn't mean that
mm,
will be involved forever in your life either. Because sometimes actually we might just give you advice
yeah.
and that's it. Or at times it can just be like, right, okay, we'll refer you to the service and they just, support you and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, thank you
Yeah.
so much. This has been very informative. So there's a reason why it's been 2 years in the making. And honestly, you need to come back because I think there's a lot more that we can kind of drill down on and talk about. But this has been really, really informative. So of like learning about your journey, learning about the different ways to kind of get into social work and kind of really demystifying some of the things that people, may think of social work. And I like the whole sort of like child focus thing because that's important.
Mm,
And especially even thinking about, if they have insecure citizenship, right? Because it's about the child at the end of the day. It's
mm.
about the children and making sure that they are in the right environment and about equipping people to be able to, I'm sure Nessa also wants less cases,
Definitely, I would say so. Oh my gosh. But you know what? And for me as well, I'm always happy to give someone advice.
Yeah.
It obviously not in an official capacity, but if they're thinking, I'm worried about this and that, have a chat, I
Mm,
might just point you in the right direction depending on what's available within your area as well. But it has
mm.
been, a long time and I'm so happy that we've done this, honestly. Oh,
No, I'm so happy. And are you sure you're offering people to ask you because people will ask you?
no, the thing is, if people want to ask, because
Mm,
sometimes they're just not sure. I've had friends literally saying, Nessa, there's this and that. What do you
mm,
think we should do? And obviously, I'll always say, I am not giving you advice as,
yeah.
a child social worker, but this is what you could do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no. And we need that. And we need that. And we need that.
yeah.
No, thank you so much. I'm gonna put your details in the more information. So you guys make sure you follow Nessa, check her out. Make sure you ask them about what's happening with the podcast. Ask her and Ruby. What's
We're
going on?
coming back.
Like, what's going on with the
We're coming
podcast?
back, guys.
But no, thank you so much. This has been really, really informative. I've taken away a lot of things that I really didn't know, especially just around like the insecure citizenship and the fact that really that doesn't matter. And yeah, no, so thank you so much, Nessa, for your time. And yeah, and she's giving you all the information. She's giving you all the information. So we want to see more social workers doing good in our community.
Yeah. No, thank you, Nat. Thank you so much for having me. And I definitely promise we are going to have you on our podcast,
Yes.
Iron Rumbi, soon.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. We're definitely going to have a part 2. So, guys, make sure you check out Nessa. And yeah, if you have any comments, any questions, because Nessa has to come back, like, put it in the comments and things that, you maybe questions you may have or comments that you may have, then we can always, take it forward in a future episode. But no, thank you, everyone. Bye, guys. Lisale kuhle. Bye.